So in this video, we're going to look at the Flutter code that's going to use this API, this login up API provided by the identity framework, which not only is going to provide login but also secure login, so that we can, unless we can obtain a oAuth token, we're not able, we can't access the methods in our web API. Their attentions, of course, here are I'm not going to go into a lot of details on the Flutter UI because there's just so much material out there, so many great videos. We're just going to touch on some highlights. Number one is just submitting. This is, of course, running on the Windows 10 and pretty well identically to what I have on my Mac. And I just keep the two in sync using GitHub. So if you look up here, we can check out from version control, and then one of the options is Git. So the first thing I had to add a couple, I think only one thing here to my one package. Let's go back and look at so if we go in here and look at our pubspec.yaml, we'll find that, actually I added two things. The JSON is serializable so that I can automatically create the class. Actually, this does the serialization, and what lets me do automatically add these classes here, the user.g.dart, is I have to have this build runner. So I just add both of these here, and this notation simply means at least this version, and then I do the Flutter get. So we bring in those packages into my project. Now, this, and of course, all Flutter applications are going to start with this at the main. The main is the entry point, and we have this lambda that just calls run app and passes it the my app class that extends a stateless widget. Of course, like any other, it has the UI Flutter element. It needs a build, and our build is going to call bring in this class root page. Now, I could put this right in line, but I like to break up my code into digestible pieces. And I put all my login and my register, and for ASP, I put it into its own class. Now this, as we'll look later, is an abstract class, and I'm going to probably over time add other things, other ways of doing authorization, such as Firebase. Because I'm pulling in these bits, I have to have two imports here, one for the root page and the other for my authorization stuff. Oh, I forgot to show you what my really sophisticated UI looks like. This is my Flutter login, and we have the username is the same as in email. Of course, we can have all kinds of stuff here. I'm just trying to make this real simple, and a password. And then this we can toggle between a login and a register. And with our backend, it's a register. The registers where we create these access tokens that lets us do our secure calls. So the way we set this up is in this root page, and it's stateful, and we've got two states here for our status. We can either be signed in or we can be not signed in. And then this is in my init state. Initially I'm going to set my status to not signed in. And of course, the moment I do a set state, then we're going to fire this build method. And the build method will switch depending upon that state. If we're not signed in as we are by default, then we're going to be taken to this logon page where we will either do the register or the login. And we're going to pass it the authorization methods which we use, in this case the .NET, and the callback. This callback is our anonymous function here, which updates status, and whenever this is called, we're going to change our status, and if we successfully logged in, but again, we're going to call this build, and we're going to be taken to our home page. So we only get to the home page if we did did our login successfully. So this is the login page is going to be responsible for our login or our registration of the user. We have a couple of imports up here, user and user response. Now user is defined over here in our model, so trying to do sort of a model view thing the way I do in my C# code. User is really simple. It's just it's a JSON serializable class, meaning that I can automatically generate my serialization class, which is user.g.dart, and it just has 3 properties: ID, email, and password. And it has the factory constructor, which will be used when we have our automatic serialization classes generated for us. And this is right here. This is the how we hydrate our user object from our JSON, and this is how we produce our JSON from our user object. And the user response I simply use to give more information back when I pass the user and any errors back from my authorization class. So back to the login page. Of course, it's stateful, and there's if we take a look down here, this is the build. It's our body is going to be this a scrollable view, and this way we can make it as big as we want it to, and have as many children right here. Now in this case, we're going to create one of the childs here as a form, and our form we're going to add children to this form, and the way we do it is through this method username and password and submit widgets. Now these are just are up above here, and this username and password, we're just going to create our 2 text form fields. One of them is for email, and it is of a type email address. And then we have a validator, which is just going to apply some regex rules defined down here to make sure that our email is in the right form that we want. And when this form is saved, we're going to assign the email property of our user object. And we do the same thing for password, and for our password we'll obscure the text. So this is going to be called when down here we will have our submit our buttons that will either be dependent upon our login, our form type. If it's a login, we will have this. The primary set up a login primer button, and when it's pressed, we will call validate and submit, and the same thing for register. So this the validate and submit is going to be, we're going to enter this method whenever the user hits either what they can create an account or the register, and it's going to first enforce the rules that we've applied to the email and to the password form fields, and then we're going to call off 2 methods in our auth class. In the auth class, this is we only really want 2 methods here. That's either the register or login. And if we look at auth, this is actually an abstract class called base auth, and I made it abstract. So in the future, I might decide to implement Firebase or something like that. And there's my sign in and my register. And so if I create an account here and I run to my breakpoint, so now we're at our breakpoint in our register code, and this is just so we're going to form the URL that we want to make our call to register. And of course, it's on 10.0.2.2 because this is going to be translated by the emulator into 127.0.0.1 in Windows, and of course, this is mapped to localhost. And we form our URL, and then we just execute this. Let's see. Make our call over to it. Now we're going to set this. We've created our. I'm sorry. Back here, we've created encoded our user. We passed in this user, and the user has it as this email and the password, and we encoded this as to get our JSON string. And this JSON string, we're going to send it because we're going to be doing a post, and this is the body is going to be this JSON string, and then we're just going to send this over to our server and to register our new user. And now if we look over our server side, we're in our server method, and in our server method in .NET, we're actually creating our new user and putting it into our user database, and we just run this, and we're back on our Flutter side, and we look at our status code and make sure it's a 200. Yes, it is. Oh, so things worked okay in our server, and so we're going to return things back to our login to the login page. So we're going to run to our next breakpoint, and this is where we're going to be. We end up doing a set state because we want to change our form. We want to change our form from our register into our login. And whenever we're in our set state, of course, this is going to result in a change to. It's going to result in our build being called. And in our build part of this, we're going to regenerate our buttons, and this will depend, of course, upon the state. And our state should be now login. So we're going to change our buttons, and we're going to change, and we're going to show our screen. If we're going to let's get past this breakpoint, and so if we now look at we've now changed to our login state. So now we've done our hit the login button, and we're at this breakpoint back in my sign-in code. And what we did is we formed this that string, which would consist of the username plus the password plus the grant type equals password. And this is necessary because we want to you would think we'd be calling into, as I said, into this login, but this token thing endpoint requires this, and we've set up this as our body and our content type as URL encoded. So we made this call over to our server side, and we should get back a 200, and we do. And in the body here, we'll actually see the access token that we need, and this is the access. And so I will JSON decode it and make it into a string, and then I'm going to save this string as in my global.token, so I can use it for ensuing calls, because I can never make another. All my other calls are authorized, and without this token, we will be rejected on every server call we made. So the next thing we will look at is how we actually use this to make a sample call back on our server. So now we've hit our login button, and we've logged into the server, and we're back here in root page. This is one way to do this. the authorized call is where whenever our state changed to login, we fire this set state back in because there was a callback which we passed to the login page, and this once this callback, well, when we do the set state, then of course again we're going to call this build method, and our state will be signed in, and so then we'll be able to access our home page. Then and only then. So this is where this is the home page, and this is which we could only reach if we're logged in. And this let's look at the build method. We're just going, our body is going to be supplied with this get user info method. Get user info is going to employ this new thing wrinkle called future builder. And the way this works is that it'll have two attributes. One is a future, and the other is the builder. So, and the builder is only going to be called after we execute our future. So it's just a convenient way to handle asynchronous calls. And this the future we're going to assign here with user info probably could have been a little more explicit in my names here, but user info, of course, is an asynchronous function which just returns a string. And the first thing we do is we build the URI, which we're going to call into user info. Simple method back on our server, which will just return the email of the current user. And but it's a secure call, so we can only make that call if we pass the authorization, the oAuth authorization token that we received on our login. And we create this string which is bearer plus the name of that token. We then do our get to our server, and we pass as the header, we pass this the authorization string which we just built. Then we look at our response. If it's a 200, then we decode the body and return the email. Now and then and only then will this code, which displays the data on the screen, be executed. And of course we check first if we have the data. So in this case we just did a really simple call, but this is I hope that just shows you how we can put together Flutter and ASP.NET Identity Services and be able to secure our calls to our server. Now, of course, one could use Firebase for doing the same thing, and there are, I'm sure, lots of other alternatives. But this is for .NET developers, and I think Identity is a good solution. Now I realize this is parts of this video probably a little rough, but I hope you were able to glean some information from it.